Great. Hi. Oh, coming up. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Jennifer Gans, who's come to speak to us today. We're very fortunate. We just finished our retreat, so everyone is very centered, ready to hear. Dr. Gans is a clinical psychologist specializing in the psychological impact of deafness and hearing on well-being. In her private practice in San Francisco, Dr. Gans treats clients with tinnitus, hyperacusis, misophonia, and other hearing-related difficulties. She completed research at the University of California, San Francisco, in the Department of Otolaryngology's audiology clinic on mindfulness-based tinnitus stress reduction, MBSR. In fact, Dr. Gans in 2009 designed the mindfulness-based tinnitus stress reduction program to teach mindfulness meditation skills to people with chronic tinnitus, helping participants cultivate new ways to relate to the experience of tinnitus and stress in their daily lives. That program is available at mindfultinnitusrelief.com. And so without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Dr. Gans. Can you hear us?
I just want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. Hi, Peter. It's very nice to meet
Jennifer.
you.
Can everybody
Can
hear?
you hear me okay?
Yes.
You kept freezing, Peter. You kept freezing.
Okay, how about now?
Yeah, now it's good.
Okay, we're good.
Okay. Yeah, so if you can't hear me, just go thumbs down at any point. I know that connectivity issues can be a drag. But anyway, so I am just thrilled to be able to speak with you guys today, and hopefully you'll be able to speak with me, because I'd like to maybe save some time for some questions, because I feel like I'm about to kind of throw maybe some teasers out. And I see Joy in the group here, and she knows very well that this is one of my favorite things to talk about. I can talk an awful lot about tinnitus and mindfulness. But so you guys have had a long and big day, and certainly an 8-week life experience for sure. And so as John Kabat-Zinn has said, and you might have covered this already in how you in your work towards the end, that this 8-week group is only the beginning. This is the beginning of the rest of your lives. And what I'd like to, there's so many different areas of tinnitus that I can speak about. I'm going to assume that you guys have got the solid MBSR bug, and you're going to take that to amazing places. And so I want to be the voice, or the voice of tinnitus as we're speaking today. And of course, I can't speak about tinnitus without speaking about mindfulness. So the two will certainly dovetail. But so as John Kabat-Zinn says, and I quote him daily, that this course is the beginning of the rest of your lives. This is the 8 weeks of learning that you have done have actually prepared you for your lifetime. And he says something very, very interesting, or excuse me, the Buddha says something very interesting, that pain in life is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Okay, so I love to say that quoted. It's such an important reminder. Pain in life is inevitable, but suffering is optional. So, now that I can say things to you as a group, now that you have completed this 8-week program, and you're not going to maybe, I don't know, this might be a strange thing for somebody to say, but now that you've done this 8-week program, you now get to use tinnitus to your advantage. Okay, crazy, right? It's, I'm sure at one point tinnitus was like, oh my God, I can't live with it. I can't live like this. This is not okay. But now that you've taken this 8-week program, you can now use tinnitus as your barometer for stress. And the reason why I can say that comfortably is because tinnitus is a benign body sensation that your brain has misunderstood as something important to pay attention to. And so pain in life is inevitable, Suffering is optional. And so now you get to use tinnitus to your advantage, because when you are experiencing tinnitus, and you may or may not, over your lifetimes, you now get to, when it's there, when it's in your field of awareness, you get to say, oh yeah, there's that pain. Okay, let me take a deep breath and ask myself, how can I suffer differently? If I have to suffer, can I suffer less? And so tinnitus now becomes your reminder. And actually you will come to realize that there's many things in life. There's so much pain in life. Let's just embrace it, because it's there. And I don't need to list it off because, boy, we've had quite a year, right? But pain in life is inevitable. Suffering is optional. So when you are experiencing tinnitus, you will now go back to your mindfulness instruction over these last 8 weeks, and maybe, from anywhere you take it, hear it forward. And you can ask yourself a question. Okay, how can I create some space so that I can now respond to tinnitus rather than react in old habitual ways? Okay. And I know that's a hard, when somebody gets tinnitus, I mean, oftentimes it gets wrapped up in a story. I don't know if you spoke about stories during MBSR, but here's the tinnitus, and then it gets wrapped up in a story of like, oh my God, what is that? Could I have a brain tumor? Oh my God, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. How am I going to work? How am I going to enjoy, time with friends? Oh God, this is all my fault for all the rock music I listened to when I was a kid. Whatever the story is that gets wrapped around it, you've now learned a major tool from this MBSR course where you can invite in tinnitus into your field of awareness. If it's there, it can be, it's clearly unpleasant, but you know what? That's what's there in that moment. Can you be with the moment and observe the tinnitus and see if you can be a participant observer? I don't know if that word has ever, come up in these 8 weeks, but being able to sit in the audience basically and watch the movie, watch tinnitus, sit in the audience and say, okay, in this moment, how can I best support myself? How can I be the most compassionate I can be of myself in this moment? And oftentimes it's just staying with it. And so I wasn't here for this amazing 8 weeks you guys just went through. And I know that perhaps what connects this group is tinnitus. And I don't know if you could certainly go through an entire MBSR course without speaking about any particular pain, because we all come to the table with all different kinds of pain. And I'm wondering if, I don't know, maybe you can invite tinnitus into the meditation that you've been doing. I don't know if that's, been brought up. But again, I want to reiterate that tinnitus is a benign body sensation that your brain has misunderstood as something important to pay attention to. Thank God we're not talking about cancer. Thank God we're not talking about ulcers. Thank God we're not talking about heart attacks and the whole list of stress-induced, in some fashion, stress-induced types of illnesses that, that certainly are not benign. But tinnitus, we get to now use it as kind of the uninvited guest, so to speak, because it's just your silly brain misappraising a benign body sensation. The body, the brain naturally wants to habituate to uninteresting or benign body sensations. And there's something about you, and I don't know that we'll actually have time to necessarily get into it, but I talk about this trifecta of tinnitus often, where, well, here we go. But, when I'm baking a cake, let's say, we know that there's certain ingredients that have to go into that cake, okay? There needs to be flour, there needs to be maybe some sugar and eggs, let's say, or, actually I haven't baked a cake in a while. So there's many ingredients that need to go in, but you can't have a cake unless you have one of those ingredients. And so I talk about tinnitus as being kind of like baking something. I mean, there's 3 necessary ingredients that you cannot have bothersome. Now, anybody can get tinnitus, But the ones who fall into the bothersome group, and I, just by the very fact that this group is coming together for reasons of tinnitus, is an indication to me that you all in some fashion are living a life with tinnitus that's bothersome. There's 3 ingredients for that. A little bit of hearing loss. Now that can, that is also not tragic, because as we age on this earth, we all experience some form of hearing loss. So we're not going to talk about that. Stress and something amazing about your personality. Okay, and I want to frame it as a positive, because this something about your personality is also what makes you amazing as people. It's what you love about yourself. It's what friends love about you. It's what makes you an effective person in our world, in our community. But this very personality is also what's making your brain focus on this sound and kind of hold on to it and not let it go. And so this particular personality, and this to me is the fun part, because I get to sit with clients, and gosh, I've sat for thousands of hours with people with, talking about tinnitus. I'd say that not 99.999% of the time, but 100% of the time, the people that I'm working with that have bothersome tinnitus. Now, again, anybody can get tinnitus, but the ones who are bothered by it and the ones who are struggling with the brain's ability to habituate to it, all have a tendency, and it's tough to talk about. I'm always trying to find the right words, but they are the type of people that they scan their environment, they spot a problem, they latch onto it, and they're not going to let it go until they figure it out. They tend to be maybe a type of person that, and again, I don't mean this by way of diagnosis, I mean this more in a descriptive fashion, is they might be a little bit obsessive compulsive about the way they approach things. Okay, so here we have tinnitus. We also, in the midst of hearing loss, but again, that's kind of the nature of the aging process. We all lose hearing at some point. Stress, and gosh, we've all had major stress during this COVID time. I don't care who you are, whatever stress level you came into COVID with, it's like a volume switch. You're kind of dealing with that much more stress. And then you have this amazing personality. Now, if you can, it's not about changing your personality. It's about being able to be a participant observer in your life and to know when, where, and how much. When can I let go? When is holding on and trying to figure something out and fix something actually no longer yourself with tinnitus? And once you can get unstuck or unblocked in some fashion, the brain is able to reappraise body sensations as they come in, sensations from the outside as they come in, and start to appraise them in a more life-affirming way. Basically, being able to habituate, being able to put uninteresting information into the background. And I talk about tinnitus as a paper tiger, okay? I'm sure all of you have heard of a paper tiger. I think it harkens back to World War II. I think the Japanese army or military called the American military, the United States military, a paper tiger. And what that means is, just as it sounds, it looks scary, but it's made of paper. And that rings true, that rings true for people with tinnitus, that this tiger-looking body sensation is actually made of paper. And so if your brain can allow it to be there and make it uninteresting, and when it's there, allow it to be there. When it's there, you don't have to like it, and it can be incredibly unpleasant, but it's there. Pain in life is inevitable. And so how to suffer less with it is to allow it to be there. Keep your brain calm, keep it relaxed. Don't latch on and try to figure everything out, and allow it to go where it belongs, into the background. And so why mindfulness? Why is this so effective in helping people with basically suffering less with pain? It's because we get to slow things down. We get to create some space. We get to just be with what is right now without all the noise that can speed things up and make things, almost push us into the future or keep us stuck in the past. And so with a mindfulness approach, we get to be a participant observer. We get this equidistance from all things. And when tinnitus is there, now, believe me, I get it. This is pain. It's hard. It's unpleasant. But you also can handle it in this moment. And I think that that's what a mindfulness-based stress reduction program does best, is it teaches you that whatever's happening in the moment, you might as well show up for it, because there it is. But everything changes. Nothing stays the same. We're all riding a wave. And if you allow the wave without trying to hold on to the wave, you can just let whatever's unpleasant pass by, and sure, pleasant is going to come behind it, and then a little bit of unpleasant, and then we start to learn how to suffer less. And the beauty is it's not about the tinnitus. What we learn from this program is that tinnitus is just another example of it, but then we start to see that, wait a minute, this applies to everything in life. I don't have to suffer as much. Whenever something comes up that's painful, I don't have to wrap it up in a story and create it into something that it may or may not ever be. I can allow it to be there in the moment, and I can use what resources I have to respond to whatever the pain is, rather than these old reactions that keep us stuck and kind of in a bit of a spiral. Wow, I can keep going, I can stop, I can just talk all day about tinnitus, but I want to hear from you guys. I want to maybe open it up for questions, and then maybe we can dovetail into topics that might actually be more appropriate for you guys, because I don't know you. So let me open this up to questions. Bring it on.
Great, anyone. Thank you so much. That was really fantastic. Put everything in, so many things into context. So I'll just ask a question.
It might just be me, but Peter, why am I not hearing you better? And I'm afraid that I won't hear others better.
I'm not sure why my people had trouble with my audio.
It just sounds muffled, and I have my volume all the way up.
Yeah.
Does anybody else put up their thumbs if you're having trouble hearing him, or is it just
Are
me?
you having trouble hearing me?
No,
No. Okay.
no.
All right, let me, you know what, it probably is me. Hold on. Just give me 1 second to monkey with this.
Sure. So, okay, I'll just let people maybe see if you want to hear someone else, if it's me, have someone else talk.
Let's see.
Hello?
Can you hear CFAN? Can you hear,
Yeah.
can you talk CFAN?
Let's just keep going, and we'll see if I
Okay,
can't.
okay, CFAN, you want to talk,
Sure.
ask a question?
Yeah, thank you. I'm an engineer. When I see my audiology, first thing come out is my say, oh, engineering is the worst occupation for tinnitus, because you always want to find a solution. So it sounds like what you're saying that is, I need to change my personality a little bit. Just, it is there already, tinnitus, I cannot avoid it. So don't try to figure out how to fight it. Just try to figure out how to suffer less. Is that what you're basically saying, right?
No, it's not coming through there. Yeah, I did hear what you said, but no, you've got a great personality. I wouldn't change it for a million years, but you have to, like a beautiful wild horse, you have to learn when, where, and how much. You have to learn to pull the reins in and control this amazing personality that you have. If you're at work and you're trying to solve a problem, you're very happy to have this kind of personality. But so why I think that it's not about changing, it's about shifting. It's about creating some space between you and all things, so that you get to choose, so that you can be that engineer mind, but you can also not be that engineer mind when it doesn't serve you.
CFAN?
It could be the hardest thing you've ever done because you have, you have honed your skills. You have, really, grown this personality that you have, but it's not a death sentence. It's it's also what makes you wonderful. So, you might have an engineering mind, but now that you found mindfulness, you get to slow down. You get to allow your mind to pause for a moment and choose when, where, and how much. You get to decide. Being a participant observer in life, before perhaps you found mindfulness, you were just going on being, you were in your life. But we have this prefrontal cortex, this part of our brain that's amazing. It's the part of our brain that allows us to step outside ourselves and observe ourselves, this metacognition. Okay. And so by doing that, we can in any given moment, we can step outside of ourselves and almost be our own best friend walking through life and say, you know something, I just caught myself holding on to an idea, a thought, or a story about tinnitus or about anything. I mean, that's the joke here, is that it's really it's not tinnitus is what brought you to the group, but it is not about tinnitus. It's about a style of being. It's about being able to create some space in your life so that you can start choosing rather than going on old familiar paths, if that makes any sense.
When I have tinnitus back in March, right? Well, for 3 months, all I was trying to do is find and why did I get tinnitus? Is it because I have something wrong with me in some way? I'm Chinese. They say, well, your kidney is weak. So I keep trying to find the cause of my tinnitus. But I think after 3-4 months, I'm kind of giving it up. I just accept it. Okay, I say this one thing is going to be with me. But I just compare myself with a handicapped person. Say, hey, maybe I'm just kind of lesser handicapped person. Okay, I'm more lucky than people who doesn't have a leg, doesn't have a hair, or can't see. So I'm able to accept this more. I'm able to accept my tinnitus. Just put it this way.
Yeah, and I hope that you guys can take it a step further after taking this course and realize that, and again, I'm going to say this a million times, thank God we're talking about tinnitus. Thank God we're talking about tinnitus, because we would be having a very different conversation if this was any kind of stress-related illness like an ulcer or God forbid cancer or all the things that can happen to the body. Now you get to, it's almost like you get a warning in life. By using your tinnitus, you can now see when the stress might be a little bit too much. Now you get to use it as your barometer. Think about a thermostat. And if your tinnitus is going through the roof, chances are it's time to push back from your desk and do a breathing exercise. If the tinnitus is just blaring and it feels really, really unpleasant, it might be a moment to just allow it to be there without creating a story, watching your mind. You don't have to jump onto a thought, observing the thoughts as they come and go, and allow yourself to show up for the moment for what is. And it's a reminder to us all that that we owe it to ourselves to manage our stress. It's and anytime that tinnitus becomes incredibly unpleasant, you have to ask yourself, gosh, maybe I need to do something to really relax myself. Maybe I need to put on sound. Sound is a great relaxer. Music is, it's been in cultures from the beginning of time. There's something about music. There's something about, and our ears love to hear. In fact, they love to hear so much that in the absence of sound, they're creating sound, so to speak. I mean, I see tinnitus is a bit of a phantom limb pain situation. So, maybe push back from your desk, put on anything that relaxes you, sound that relaxes you, and, maybe take a shower or take a walk, or, you have your list of things that you can do to relax yourself. And if, you feel like, oh man, that's not working, then you know what? Pain in life is inevitable. You have to allow it to be there, invite it in and say, wow, Isn't it fascinating? This is what this moment has brought. This moment's not going to be forever, but right now, this is tough. It's okay. It has to be okay because this is what is. But wow, is this tough?
Joy?
Yeah, so I have a kind of generalized question, understanding that we are all unique individuals with different narratives and different tinnitus situations. But I wonder, how do you guide your patients in mindfulness to address two oppressive emotional components of tinnitus, which are anxiety and the fear of being unable to go to sleep? Do you have any thoughts that you can direct to the group on that?
Yeah. Well, it's, you just said something very interesting. We have tinnitus, but what's below the tinnitus is also very important to deal with. If you are walking this life right now with unbelievable levels of anxiety, that's, finding a therapist to manage that anxiety below, because what anxiety does is it speeds things up. When we feel this gripping anxiety, it trips a switch in us and we don't feel like we have a choice. We just feel overwhelmed with the speed and discomfort of anxiety. So the top 3 complaints of people with tinnitus, again, you may or may not know this, are anxiety, depression, and sleep difficulty. Number 4 might be concentration issues, but I really do believe that these top 3 are what causes the concentration issues. So these are, don't ignore these. These are the anxiety, the depression, and the sleep difficulty that are below the tinnitus. These are foundational, and these are things that you can that you need to reach out for more help with. Okay. Now, does that help you in the immediate when you've got to get to sleep? Well, again, with anxiety, what mindfulness helps us with is to just observe the thoughts, and anxiety is very much based on the way we think. These thoughts that come and go, and how we believe our thoughts. There's that other saying that thoughts are not facts. Don't believe everything you think. But so it's a call. I want to go back to your question, Joy, because it's so important, because I would say that everybody with tinnitus is struggling with anxiety in some fashion, some anxiety, depression. I mean, it's so tough to deal with tinnitus and sleep difficulty. Now, again, I think you need to seek some help. There's a lot of sleep specialists out there, and it's not, don't go for necessarily the tinnitus help, but go for, you can get educated on tinnitus and then go see somebody that doesn't know anything about tinnitus, and just, work on the anxiety component, because I think that there's a real dearth of people out there that understand tinnitus, and one bad piece of information can get the mind spinning again. But these are, Joy, this is the toughest part. And so, if your anxiety is so overblown, if it's going through the roof, sometimes it's okay to reach out for medication. That's a choice. You don't have to, but it is another tool that is out there that we can use to help us. And it doesn't mean it has to be forever. It's just until you can use the meditation process and mindfulness to help you slow things down so that you can start reappraising tinnitus. Now, sleep, the same thing. Sleep deprivation is tantamount to torture. And so sometimes we have to, sometimes it is helpful to reach out to, to medicine, if that's what your choice is. Otherwise, I think, speaking with, or in conjunction, I think, why not throw it all in at the same time? Speaking with a therapist, speaking with a sleep specialist, to unblock what your brain already knows how to do. All of us know how to sleep. We've been doing it since we were a baby. And so clearly there's something that's stopping your brain from doing what it knows how to do. And so when we start to uncover that And certainly tinnitus and the stories that we wrap around tinnitus and the fears that make our amygdala get bigger and, can make our, again, can change any response into a reaction to tinnitus. We need to, understand the stories that we're wrapping around these things. So so again, I hope that that I'm a little bit talking in many directions, but I want to be clear that you need to work with what's below the tinnitus. And yeah, next question. Trudy.
You just walked
Trudy?
right into my next question. Oh, sorry. You just walked right
Trudy.
into my next question.
Oh.
Thank you. Most of us have been to the doctor and have been prescribed anti-anxiety, antidepressants because we're going crazy with this and we're upset and we're scared. I myself am still on them. So what you kind of, maybe I didn't understand this correctly, but when you were talking about the trifecta, the third one was something about your personality. And you said, all right, someone who picks a problem and fixes it, but somebody who might be a little obsessive compulsive. Are the doctors putting us on the wrong drugs? Should we not be on antidepressants and anti-anxieties? But if the problem is that we're obsessive compulsive, wouldn't that be a better way to handle that?
Obsessive compulsive behavior it falls under the rubric of anxiety.
Right.
Okay. So, a good doctor that you can have a good communication with I'm pausing for a moment because I want to be very careful in how I talk about this. I am not a medical doctor. However, I speak, with, again, for thousands of hours with people with tinnitus, many of whom are on antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication. And so I get to hear about all the side effects every week. So, so in anything that stresses you out is going to make your tinnitus more bothersome. Anything that relaxes you is going to make your tinnitus less bothersome. Being anxious is very stressful. Being depressed is very stressful. Poor sleep is very stressful. So if you're taking an anti-anxiety medication, antidepressant medication, sleep medication, it's relieving some of the stress of those difficulties, and therefore your tinnitus is probably going to bother you less. And then you get to use the meditation process to basically retrain your brain. I mean, we haven't gone into it, but there's a lot of science behind meditation now. And I keep pointing to this part of our brain because this is the prefrontal cortex right here. And this is where the magic happens. And when I'm speaking to you today, when I'm speaking with any client or this mindfulness-based tinnitus stress reduction course that I created, I have 3 overriding goals. My number 1 goal is to help you feel less anxious about tinnitus. My second goal is to make you an expert in tinnitus. Okay, so that you can go teach your doctor a thing or two, because very intelligent people don't understand tinnitus. And here's why. I have a lot of empathy for the medical community because they have been trained to fix things.
Right.
Okay. And when we go into a doctor's office and we complain of something, they feel compelled to fix it. And oftentimes it's in the form of a pill or a procedure. And if we walk out without one of those 2, we feel gypped. Okay. However, the problem with tinnitus is that there's nothing to fix. There's actually nothing broken. Okay. And so doctors are overwhelmed by this. They misunderstand it. What do you mean? There must be something to fix. And if they can't fix it, then wow, you must be crazy. And they want you out of their office as fast as you possibly can because it's all in your head. Okay. So what, again, I want you all to use tinnitus to your advantage. It's simply your brain's way of saying, wow, I'm out of tune here. Okay. I think of an orchestra. And, if the violin section and the oboes and the clarinets and the trumpets and what have you are playing in a different key, I don't care how beautiful those instruments are, it's not going to sound very good. Okay. But if you can get the symphony all in tune, it's amazing the things that you can do. And I argue, because of your amazing personalities, of the people that are in the bothersome category, because of your amazing personalities, there's a price for that. It means that your fear center, your limbic center, the limbic region of your brain, specifically the amygdala, which is kind of this little almond-shaped portion of the brain, is on fire. And it's not your fault. I would imagine a lot of you were born that way. It's something that we have to manage over time. And then the environment comes in and it either, inflames it or helps it to kind of keep in check. But what we're doing here today, and hopefully anytime you're talking about tinnitus, is you're filling your prefrontal cortex with accurate information so that you can't unknow what you know. You know now that tinnitus is a paper tiger. You know that it's a benign body sensation that your brain is misappraising as important when in fact it can go into the background. So when you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you can't sleep, you can't go into that story of, oh my God, the doctor was all wrong. I definitely have a brain tumor. Oh my God, I better get another MRI. Oh my God, what is this going to mean for when I'm 80? So you can't go there anymore because you can't, this part of your brain, this is the knowing part of your brain. You can't unknow what you know now. But the beautiful thing is that this very conscious, this part of our brain, this prefrontal cortex that makes us different from all other animals, has the ability to connect with our subconscious limbic system, our subconscious amygdala. And when it starts to fire up, this part of the brain can say, chill out. Okay. And I have to say, going back to medication, have compassion for yourselves, guys. It took you a long time to get to this place. It's tough. You've got these amazing personalities, and sometimes there's an intensity to it that like a violin string is just pulled too tight. And sometimes we need a little bit of help kind of loosening the string a little. And I think that an appropriate medication, not an inappropriate medication, can be incredibly helpful in just relieving enough stress so that you can start to put into use this amazing information that you have. Now, you guys, you have to use your gut. Just because you walk into a doctor's office and they hand you a certain kind of anti-anxiety medication or antidepressant or whatever, you guys are smart. You know your body's better than any doctor ever will. Okay, it's an opportunity now to negotiate or to have a conversation with your doctor. Help them educate you, because humans are meaning-making creatures. Okay, when we don't understand something, we freak out. And I'll use COVID as a perfect example. This whole world, I'm not even gonna say our country, this whole world is freaking out because boom, comes COVID. Even the best of the best of the best didn't know what was going on, or some of them still don't. But we're meaning-making creatures. When we don't understand something, our amygdala goes crazy. Okay, tinnitus is a perfect example. When the first day you get tinnitus or it feels really bothersome, nobody really knows what's going on. You've never had this before, and then boom, the brain goes crazy. And so, again, going back to COVID, we're dealing with a world that's on high alert right now. We're all feeling more anxious. Okay, and so you have to know. And so, education, good education about tinnitus. And if I may plug Joy and her work with the ATA, this is a group you can trust. If you're seeing it at the ATA, it's coming from the right place. Okay, now you can go down a lot of rabbit holes, and I love the internet. Who doesn't, right? It gives us information at the palm of our hands. But all it takes is one bad piece of information to make your amygdala go on fire. Okay? So, Trudy, I feel like I've kind of gotten away from your original question. I want to say that anything that relaxes you is going to help you. If you can negotiate with your doctor and you feel that an antidepressant, something like Zoloft is a wonderful drug for people with tinnitus because it's so great at the top three. It's you know, drugs like Zoloft. I mean, there's so many, and it doesn't work for everyone. That's the
I
pain
know, right.
about, you know, these psychotropic drugs are kind of a wait and see kind of drug. You know, they can have different effects in different people. But what, you know, Zoloft, just to use a name for one, has been very helpful to many of the people that I've seen with tinnitus, because it really touches on anxiety, depression, and sleep difficulty, and a little bit of, you know, the OCD, which again is you can see that as an anxiety thing. So
You answered it perfectly. Thank you.
all right, next
That was a
question.
perfect answer. Thank you. Thank you.
Who's next?
Someone else have a question? Okay. Just go ahead and speak, because I can't really see. I don't have a Scott.
Yes, Jennifer, thank
Yes.
you very much. Yeah,
That's fine.
can you say that most people who have tinnitus, and maybe you already answered it, are for on the most part fearful people?
Well,
I mean, more
They-
fearful than the man on the street. They've got some sort of, you know, I've always been a fearful person ever since I was a little kid.
right,
And,
right.
You know, I'm getting better at it. It's only taken about 70 some years, but
Let me say this, fearful people are on it, okay? Fear keeps your mind alert. So if you consider yourself a fear, you know, you have maybe an extra helping, let's say, of fear, or your amygdala. I mean, if I could, you know, if I could speak for what's happening in your brain, your amygdala is just well honed. You are alert, you're scanning your environment, and you can spot a problem before anybody else can, and boy, you're gonna squash it before it can, if it can, you know, be the end of the world or whatever. So, but that's adaptive. You know, fear is a necessary part of our ability to exist in this world, you know, because you were the people that kept the tribe you kept the tribe safe. You were the ones that spotted the problem before anybody else noticed it. So you could also see that as, you know, your, you know, it's ancestral, you know, but anxiety and fear are bedfellows. I mean, you know, they are, you can't have one without the other. They're part of, I guess fear is what creates anxiety, I should say. Fear might be you know, what's below the anxiety. But again, I'm very loath to say that any of this is a bad thing, you know, being fearful. But what going back to the MBSR course that you just took, it teaches you how to say when, where, and how much. Maybe when a fearful thought comes into your mind, you don't have to believe it. Maybe you can let it go by. Maybe you don't have to jump on that train. You know, I always tell people, I don't care what you think, because you're going to think it anyway. But I do care if you believe what you think. You see the difference? Okay. So, and so again, you know, Scott, you get to now use tinnitus as your barometer. If tinnitus is particularly bothersome, chances are you need to push back from your desk. You need to push back from whatever you're doing, and do even just a 5-minute breathing exercise, just to take the edge off, so that you can create a little bit more space between you and all things. It gives you this stopgap. You know, well, I'll go back to Sarah Lazar's work. Again, I love the brain science that we have behind meditation now, because it helps me to talk about it. It helps me to understand, you know, why meditation is so amazing. It's why it's so helpful in helping us to balance and tune our orchestra. This woman, Sarah Lazar, she is a professor at Harvard, and she was curious about experienced meditators, like what's happening in their brain. So she put a group of experienced meditators, and there's been tons of research done. I shouldn't say tons, there needs to be more, but there has been more research following her initial studies. She put a bunch of experienced meditators through an fMRI study, a brain imaging study, to see, well, what's happening inside the brain of a meditator. And what she found was that experienced meditators have a larger medial prefrontal cortex, and a less activated amygdala. And so that's what got me interested in this, because if that's, if I'm learning, if, with tinnitus, if we need to bone up on the prefrontal cortex and give them, give more information so that we can relax the amygdala, well, there's the answer right there, right? And so, through my research and through, obviously, you guys are a case study right here. That your ability to slow things down with meditation, and it'll take time. I mean, you keep using this process. Trust the meditation practice over time, and you guys could be your own case study as to shifting tinnitus from bothersome to non-bothersome. Doesn't mean it goes away, but if it doesn't bother you, then who cares? Okay, so that to me is effectively a cure. There's a lot of people out there that are like, wait a minute, we need a cure for this, and we got to find that cure. Joy and I have had conversations about this, where there's actually communities that are angry at the meditation community with tinnitus, and angry at the cognitive behavioral therapy group with tinnitus, because they feel like it kind of dilutes the war, or the war to find the cure. But isn't that effectively a cure? I mean, ultimately, who cares if you have tinnitus if it doesn't bother you? So maybe that's, so again, that's where I'm coming from. I'm interested in things that work, and we don't have a pill, and we don't have a procedure yet. I mean, that's not to say that we won't someday, but right now we don't. But we do have the ability to use our brain to change our brain. We do have the ability to use our mind to change our brain. And that's what we're needing with tinnitus. We don't need to, well, I should say, to shift our brain. We don't need to get rid of our brain. We just need to retune the strings so that we can start appraising our environment and appraising our body in accurate ways. Okay, so so there you have it. So meditation is wonderful for it's kind to yourself. It's compassionate for you to. Fear is so uncomfortable. Fear can almost feel painful. It's so uncomfortable. And so how can you suffer less with fear? And meditation is pretty much one of the healthiest ways I've found to use our brain to change our brain. And the beautiful thing is you take it everywhere you go. You don't need a prescription for it, and there's no side effects. Actually, there are side effects. It can make your life more full, and that's a positive side effect. So, but yes, and so Scott, you, and so finding ways to help yourself with fear is going to be your life's goal. It's not about the tinnitus. Don't get locked into it. You're getting stuck on tinnitus when really what's below the tinnitus is what matters. So.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any questions?
And let me also say, if you, it's hard, like I guess I'm putting you on the spot. I'm like, all right, ask me a question. I don't know if you're like me, sometimes I miss my chances, and, as soon as we end this meeting, you might have a question, but don't fear. You can always email me. Clearly, I love to talk about this stuff. So, Peter, maybe you can share my email with the group, jg@mindfultinnitusrelief.com. If if anything comes up, whether it's about meditation, where to go from here, a question about tinnitus, or maybe you want to re-ask a question that you've already asked. It's all fair game.
That's great. Actually, we got about half the people. It's like 25 people in the class. As I wrote you, they asked if they could record it. You graciously allowed us to record it. So this is they're going to be looking at this, and I'm sure they'll have stuff. I appreciate you making yourself available for them. Thank you so much. So this was a lot of great information, and I think.
And I do have to say one more thing. Joy, I hate to put you on the spot here. Joy is the ATA is it is a place to fill your prefrontal cortex with. Okay, I think that the articles that are written, the love behind it is it's an association that you can trust as a go-to for tinnitus. And I know that Joy is also interested in having questions asked. But I want to also warn you about the internet. You know, it's funny because I'm both saying go to the internet, and I'm also saying don't go to the internet, you know, because so much can be found there. Be careful with chat rooms. Be careful, because everybody has an individual experience with tinnitus. So you can't listen to somebody else's story and apply it to you. Everybody's individual with tinnitus, and what drives the tinnitus is feeling stuck. And so that can come in so many different fashions. So be careful when you hear other people's stories. And again, using the mindfulness-based stress reduction format, you know, it's the full catastrophe, right? It's pain in life, but you can suffer less or more if you choose, but let it be a choice. If you're going to suffer more, at least let it be a choice. So
I have a question, if that's okay.
Okay, Brian, yeah.
You can hear me.
Go.
So Dr. Gans, your website lists a number of tinnitus therapies. And one particular caught my interest is the tinnitus retraining therapy. And I wonder if you could maybe just say a couple of words about that.
Well, I think that, you know, again, anything that does these three things, anything that helps you to feel less anxious about tinnitus, anything that helps you to become an expert in what tinnitus is and what it isn't, and anything that helps you to cobble together a management plan to help you relate to tinnitus differently is a good package. And that package comes in so many different forms. I mean, I'd love to say that mindfulness-based tinnitus stress reduction in my online course at mindfultinnitusrelief.com is the only way. No, there's many doors to the same room. And so it really has to speak to you. You know, there's a lot offered out there. And, you know, I TRT and Jastroboff, who is the originator of it, is, you know, he's a leader in the field. You know, I have my opinions, but again, it's, you know, anything that helps you to feel less anxious about tinnitus, that continues to make you an expert in what it is and what it isn't, but accurately. And something that gives you management tools to work with tinnitus when it's unpleasant. Again, think of the trifecta. I don't know why 3 always comes up, but these are, you know, but anything that has these three components is going to help you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I just assumed everyone here was members of the American Tinnitus Association. If you're not, you should join immediately. Yeah. So,
Immediately.
Yeah, and I know we have many members of our Arizona support group are in this group as well. So, but it's good to remind everybody, and it's a great resource, the American Tinnitus Association, as is Dr. Gans's website and the mindfultinnitusrelief.com. Great course. So yeah, so we're gonna put this online. If you have any further questions, she's graciously, I'll get the email out to everybody, her email that you can answer. Otherwise, thank you so much for spending this time with us and really complimenting everything we did. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for everything.
That was some amazing
Thank you
tough
for all
love.
you gave us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. All
Thank
right.
you so much.
Yes. So we will see you all on Tuesday. I hope we still have a couple more classes left. So this is like the retreat. Thank you again, Jennifer, for this.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Thank
Wish
you.
you all well. And I was so thrilled when Peter told me about this group, because I just wish that everybody with tinnitus could learn how to slow down and start making choices in their life rather than feeling compelled, and suffer less. So, you know, this, you know, I hope the word gets spread that, you know, the power of being able to use the mind to change your mind. And yeah, and I thank you. Obviously, this is my passion, and any opportunity I can speak about it, as Joy knows, I'll just blah, blah, blah. So I wish you all well, and keep up the practice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.